Okay, so we are live. Welcome everyone. This is the Brilliancy Chess Academy Blitz matchup between one and only Benard Anhwere, alias Nyameba on lichess, and then Prince Akpa, who plays with the username Akpap. This is a very top a very top match. They played a match just last week. It was a very close match. I followed the games myself, and at the end, I think Benard claimed a very close victory. And now we have a good old rematch. So we are joining the games. I think they've already started with the first game. So it's a 10 game match with a time control blitz 3 minutes plus 2 second increment per move. This is the first game. Prince is playing here on the black side. I'm kind of torn between the two of them because they're both colleagues of mine. I've played and been with Ben in Kenya for a very long time. And Prince is someone I've gotten to know quite well over the past few years as well. So I'm going to play from the viewpoint of... I'm going to switch every game. I'm going to play from the viewpoint of whoever is fighting for each game. So this game will start from Ben's viewpoint. He started with 1d4. Prince started one knight f6, c4, g6. So Prince is an expert in playing d5. Yeah, these Grunfeld type structures. I think he studied it quite well. Ben went for e3, a modest line, bishop g7, knight c3, c5. They're already playing, so we are just trying to quickly catch up to where they are now. An early c5 from Prince. Ben took on c5, queen a5 was played. This is all theory, I think, from the black side. But Ben went for queen a4, which is an interesting sequence. He goes for an early queen exchange. The queens come off the board, and probably he takes back on c4. Yes, he does. That's black. The bishop took back. And king f8. Oh, wow. This was almost certainly a good old mouse slip. I mean, he definitely wanted to castle here, but it seems he played king f8 by accident. I think he sent a take back, but at this level, you don't really expect takes backs like that. So knight g5, Ben immediately tried to attack the weak f7 square. e6 is forced. Then Ben castled. He played e6, chased away the knight. Knight came back to f3. Prince went knight e4 himself, creating some threats, and then unleashing this powerful bishop here on g7. The rook came to d1, bishop d7, bishop b3, and I think the last move to be played is king e7. So Prince has done quite well, attempting to stabilize the position after the king f8 howler. It's still going to be quite tough, but it seems that maybe, just maybe, he can untangle. Currently, Ben just played bishop c2. He's setting the knight here on e4. The knight needs to find a square, but whoa! What happened there? This is very strange. So after okay, there was a knight on a4. So I thought that was a pawn. So after bishop to c2, Prince decided to snap take the knight on a4. So the bishop took back. So that's the c5 pawn will be hanging, and the knight duly took back. Then bishop c2 by Ben. The knight c6 by Prince, and wow, Prince has done extremely well actually. He stabilized the position, and he just might be better. And Ben just played bishop d2, a very daring move, begging you to come and take it on b2. Yeah, Prince snap takes. So I guess rook b1. Then the bishop is going to go back maybe to f6. Yeah. But the problem is the b7 pawn is actually defended. So maybe you play like rook b5. Or rook b5 is b6. I'm not sure what Ben is doing here, but he has a slight lead in development. That's Ben as white. I think using the colors would maybe be simpler to get. So white has a slight lead in development, but he's down a pawn. I mean, a pawn is a pawn. But the problem is black's king is also slightly central, as it stands, it may still prove to be the weaker of the two kings. It's a very interesting position actually. I'm not sure who is going to come out on top, but our role as spectators is the fun one. We don't have to actually sit and calculate these things. And something just happened. Ooh, okay. So white played rook c1, x-raying this knight here on c5, but then Prince, it seems, didn't take measures to defend the knight immediately, allowing this sweet tactic. Bishop takes g6, so he wins back a pawn. If you take back the bishop, he's just going to take back that knight on c5. So he decided to play b6 to hold the knight down. Now the bishop is going to retreat, probably back to c2 or maybe here to h5. But yeah, it's already looking very interesting. Tactics are being found left, right, center, and also being missed left, right, center, I must say. Yeah, so Ben decides to go bishop h5. I would have maybe preferred to come back to c2. I'm not entirely sure why he didn't, because now this d3 square is for the knight taking. Yeah, the knight prefers to go here to e4, but it's another one of those light squares that the bishop was controlling. So bishop e1 is played. Now material is equal. So, and I think this king's position is not proving to be as relevant as white would have hoped. So the position is actually still quite tightly balanced. It could swing either way. Rook hd8 was just played. Black does have a weak pawn here on h6. White has one you could argue is also weak, sorry, here on a2. Yeah, so he just played a4. Maybe wants to go a5, go for a minority attack with that pawn. That's not a bad idea. This is quite interesting. If you're just joining in, you are warmly welcome. We will be spectating these games and attempting to give some sort of commentary. I mean, both of these players are better blitzers than I am, so we'll just try and keep up. They're both very fast, very, very sharp. And yeah, we expect an exciting match, if nothing. So rook d5 was played, hitting the bishop here on h5. And yeah, that bishop is going to be in a bit of trouble. Bishop g4, h5 probably next to force the bishop to h3. And ask you why your bishop is on h3 in this position. Fortunately, I don't think the bishop ever gets actually trapped, but it's just not very comfortable. Yeah, h5 follows, bishop h3 is forced. And now both sides are going down on time. So, but white has just 14 seconds. Black has just 18 seconds. Most certainly there will be some sort of blunder in time trouble. It's almost impossible to avoid such with this time left. And ooh, is that knight not just hanging? What did I miss something? I didn't miss anything, did I? I think that was just a tactic missed. So knight c5 was played, protecting the knight now. Knight d2. Knight e5 hitting the rook. We're not going to try and give any commentary with the time left. We'll just try and watch the moves. Rook h4, going all the way to attack this pawn, but completely hanging the rook. Black missed the hanging rook and played knight to d3. Knight e4 check was just played. You have to save your rook. Ben, you have to save your rook. Move the rook away. Anywhere. He did not save the rook. The rook is still just hanging. Prince sees it this time. And I think the first game will go the way of Prince. I mean, it's just a time trouble sequence. There were pieces hanging left, right, center. But fortunately, Prince came out on top, and yeah, he just won the first game. Well, if that's any indication of how the day will go, it will be an interesting day indeed. Yeah, so no one really managed to prove superior during the game itself, so it came down to a time scramble, and then anything could happen. So here we are on the white side, looking at it from Prince's point of view. He goes for 1 c4. An English. Ben faces knight f6, knight c3, g6. He goes for g3, bishop g7. So both king side bishops are being fianchettoed. Black castle's king side, knight f3, an early d5 by black. C takes d, knight takes d, and then queen b3. It's an interesting position. Knight b6. This is all I think quite standard, and the nature of the game is going to take will depend on how white decides to set up here in the center. So you can go for many different setups. You can play d4 supported by an e3. You can play d3, e3. You can even play d3, e4 if he wants to. But for now, he's staying flexible in the center. They are pushing here on the queen side. So it's going to be an interesting kind of game. I think white should start deciding how he wants to set. I think maybe just e3, trying to stay flexible so that he can develop his bishop somewhere along this diagonal. Yeah, he goes for d3. Then Ben replies with bishop e6, hitting the queen. The queen has to drop back. c2 or d1, they are both not the best way. It says to go all the way back to d1. The problem with c2 was that it's in the way of knight b4 ideas that will gain tempo on the queen. So the queen comes all the way back to d1. Knight b4 comes anyway. The position is starting to look very, very tactical. Like already I'm thinking of ideas like knight g5, but anyway, he goes for development, puts the bishop on e3. It hits this knight, so the queen is now tied to defending this knight on b6. That's just a slight idea that could prove useful in some tactical sequence later. I'm always thinking of playing like knight g5 to hit this bishop, because that bishop is not the most comfortable on e6. Beyond that, maybe you want to put your rook on the c file, maybe queen d2, put the other rook on the d file, and try and expand in the center. That'll be the plan for the white side. I'll just try and think up the plans for the side that I'm playing as, the side that I'm facing, because it will be difficult to do same for both sides at the same time. So alternate the side that we watch from whose perspective we watch each game. So black went knight c to d5. The bishop dropped back to d2. So this is the second game. The first game ended in favor of Prince, so the scores currently 1-0 in favor of Prince. Bishop d2, holding down the c3 square. There's a lot of firepower staring down this c3 square, so he's defending it a couple of times. I think white has managed to, well, manage is not the word I want to use, but white has sort of misplayed the opening a little, because it seems he's looking more passive out of the two, at least out of the opening. He went for the lunge e4. The knight just took back, and I think you have to take back with the bishop. Anyway, the pawn on d3 is falling. So yeah, white is in a bit of trouble. He's already dropped the pawn here on e3. There's a knight here on d3 that's, I'm not sure how he's going to sack, because you can play something like bishop c4 and just keep that knight there. Also, this pawn on c3 is probably just hanging. So yeah, black is definitely much better here. But it is blitz. They both have 2 minutes on the clock, and anything can happen. So he went b5, trusting that the knight is well defended as it is, which is true. And then white goes knight g5, attacking the bishop. I think that just begs you to put the bishop on c4. I think the bishop does very nicely on c4. Yeah, he does just that. And now that the knight is not going anywhere, and the c3 pawn is now very, very weak as well. So I'm not sure what white is supposed to do here. It's a very bad position, to be frank. Maybe queen d2 or maybe queen c2 and try and put a rook on the d file. Anyway, he took back on b5. Yeah, black will just take back. I really do not like this exchange at all. Now he has a clearly passed pawn, and if you look at the position a couple of moves back, this pawn on c6 was just a little weak, and you may be hoping to try and create some counterplay with an e5 and activating your bishop. But now your bishop on g2, which is supposed to be your best piece in such structures, is just biting on nothing. Yeah, as we see, the c3 pawn has also fallen. He's going to push the pawn to b4 to b3 to b2. I think black is just completely winning here already. So b4 is on the board. He has connected passed pawns on the queen side. I will put my reputation on the line and confidently say that Ben should win this game without much difficulty. Ooh, did he just drop? Okay, no, he didn't drop a piece. He's attacking the bishop with tempo. I thought for a second he dropped the piece on c4. So yeah, Ben should win this game without too much difficulty. Takes queen, will take back with check. Can move somewhere. Is knight f2 working? It doesn't work as yet. But anyway, you can just push your pawn. Yeah, b3 is on the board. a4, a3, a2. This is resigns. Queen d2. You're always looking out for some knight f2 tactic, but I don't think it works as yet. So maybe you just take your time and you push your a pawn down the board as well. He does just that. Ben and I are like yeah, telepathically linked. Yeah, but Prince is just getting crushed here, unfortunately. Fortunately or unfortunately, I mean, for the spectators, this is good. The more level the match, the more exciting it is. So he took back on g6 with the f pawn, which is curious. It leaves the king just a little bit more open than the other capture taken with the h pawn would. But his idea, of course, is that he opens up the f file. He hopes to eliminate some of the king's defenders. He can even take on f1 here immediately. Prince also played rook b to d1, trying to argue that he's pinning this knight on d3. Maybe he gets some counterplay there, but I don't believe it for a second. I think rook f1 should win. I think a3, a2 should win. Yeah, Ben went for rook f1 first. Probably the bishop takes back. But if the bishop takes back, you can't take that pawn. I guess maybe it is slightly annoying. But knight f2 wins. No, knight f2 wins on the spot. No, it doesn't win on the spot, but it's very strong. Yeah, but knight f2 is very strong. It liquefies this whole file, and these pawns will then be easily winning. I think if he finds knight f2, it's game over. Will Ben find knight f2? I think Ben will find knight. Oh, Ben just went rook d8, which is also very strong. I mean, it's winning. There are many ways to win this position. And now knight f2 is an even bigger threat because he threatens to actually win material after it. So he goes knight f. Oh, but now knight f2 still. Ben should find knight f2 now. Now it actually just wins. He just took the pawn on e4. That's fine. They are all winning, so I won't complain about how he wins this game. So now he goes for knight f2 finally. But now queen takes here, and then the rook takes, and then prince should resign here, I think. There's just nothing to be done. Yeah, he resigns. And the game is won by Ben. So the match is level. Both sides have won one game as white. No, as black actually. So black has won both games, which is interesting. So we'll continue following from the white side. This time it's Ben. Ben starts with 1d4. Ben always starts with 1d4. This time Prince goes for a slightly funky setup with knight c6, daring you to take more space with d5. Ben declines, just goes knight f3 for a solid setup. He goes knight f6 again, not playing in the traditional manner, starting with the central pawns, but just going with the knights. Ben goes for g3, a very solid setup, I must say, d5, because I would have been tempted to push d5. That's like probably the critical way to play against such an opponent. But he goes for bishop g2, goes for these Catalan setups, but he's so experienced in is Ben. Prince goes for h6, castles, the bishop came out to f5, c4 was played, e6 by black, and then queen b3. Knight a5 here is probably forced because the queen was attacking the b7 point and also at the same time attacking d5. So white goes queen a4, check c6 is the response. All of this is probably theory. I'm not too sure who should be better here. So white decides to take on d5. What he's going to do is going to put his knight on c3. The bishop is going to come out somewhere. He's going to put this rook on the d file probably, and then try and break with e4. Or he's going to ignore all of that and just go in. Knight e5, staking his claim of the center. I'm not too much a fan of it because I think completing development may have been more useful. So yeah, black goes b5, attacks the queen. The queen has to draw back all the way to queen to d1, I think. I don't think there are any other squares. Yeah, there's actually no other square. So he has to go all the way back to d1. And queen d1 is on the board. Maybe you go bishop d6 here and then you try and castle as black. You're not too happy, but I don't think anything bad has happened either. You're not too happy because this structure on the queen side just looks really, really bad. And I'm looking to attack with like an a4 very soon. He goes rook c8 to try and hold a c6 point. The reason is that that pawn was very weak. He's only defended by this knight. So he wants to move the knight away somewhere more useful. And there were ideas of playing like a b4 to sack the knight and then take on c6. So yeah, the knight comes into c4, where it's a lot more useful. And what do you do with this bishop? Okay, so he exchanges off that knight. And the pawn appears on c4. I must say that for this particular opening, I prefer the way Prince is playing it. I think he's better. Maybe better is a strong word, but I think he solved all his opening troubles. And he isn't worse anymore. And white has played maybe a bit too passive, especially seeing as black started out with these knight c6 sort of things. So queen a4 is on the board, probably just a queen b6 to defend everything and also attack b2, but he doesn't do that. He leaves the a7 pawn just hanging and dares you to take. They are playing very enterprising chess today. I would just take that pawn, to be honest. I don't see why not. Actually, your queen gets close to getting trapped after queen a7, like a rook a8, and then you have to go. Yeah, he takes rook a8. You have to go queen b7. It doesn't actually get trapped. Oh, he just went c5. I think rook a8, queen b7, rook b8, and then taking on b2 would have been strong as well, but he didn't go for that. He went for the immediate c5. The point being that if you take, he takes back with the bishop, gains some tempo on your queen, and then his pawns in the center are ready to roll. Also very strong. Also, I think gives enough compensation for the pawn. So yeah, black has sacrificed the pawn but has a lot of play for the pawn, and I actually prefer black to be honest. He has all his pieces in the game. They are all playing. On the white side, I don't know what this bishop on d2 is doing, and this rook on a1 is not really helping the game in any way. That being said, if white is able to solve the problem of black's active pieces in the center, it does have a freely passed pawn here on the a file that could be relevant later on. So yeah, the game does remain to be played. I don't know how to respond to this. Maybe e3. Oh, he goes in for knight d5. Huh. That pawn was hanging. I didn't think it was possible because yeah, even like a bishop g3, it shouldn't be. No, bishop g3 is bishop f7. Okay, so maybe you just no, that's bishop f7. He goes for bishop d3. You should never listen to me, Ben. Bishop f7, I think white is fine. Probably not, because the thing is the c pawn is going to take here at the end of the line, and Black may be down material, but these central pawns are starting to look quite annoying. Although white also does have this pass pawn, it's crazy. Oh, he decides not to go for bishop f7, which is strange. I think that was just a free extra pawn. Not sure why he didn't go for it. There may have been something in that line that I missed. It should also be pointed out that Ben has just 25 seconds left. Prince still has a whole minute and 55 seconds. And so although white is up material, I think the time and the position all favor Prince greatly, and I think he should be a favorite to really in this particular point. I'm not sure how to finish it off though. It's not so simple. Maybe you want to bring your bishop back to d7 so that I can come to c6 and attack this diagonal. You can do it like this, which is the bishop h3, but after rook f2, the bishop isn't actually doing too much. Whereas if the bishop had gone back to c6, then you can start wreaking havoc on h1. So the way he does it is probably not the best, but I think it may be good enough. Like c takes d, like that would be queen takes. I'm not sure how he's supposed to finish this off actually. It's not simple. Yeah, he goes c takes, but I think queen takes pawn. Yeah, it's played instantly. And he should be careful, because if he allows white to consolidate that pawn, again, this pass pawn on the a file could prove to be decisive. So he avoided the queen exchange. White put the bishop on c3. If you're just joining, this is the Brilliancy Chess Academy Blitz matchup on lichess between Nyameba, Benard Anhwere, the number 7, I think, rated player in the country for classical chess, FIDE rated, and then Prince Akpa, one of the strongest Ghanaian players especially in Blitz. So far, 2 games have been played. Both sides have scored a point each, and it's looking very interesting. So here, white is a pawn up. Black had a ton of activity like 10 moves ago, but somehow has managed to let white consolidate and also get a raging attack on the king side. And now white is definitely for choice. He's even been able to sacrifice a bishop for the attack, but yeah, it's obvious that it just works. He's hitting the bishop. He's going to attack here on g6. You can just take the pawn on h6 now. Yeah, queen h6 is on the board, and then you try and bring your rook in, like f4, f5, g5. Like all these squares are there for the taking. Yeah, so here you do something like this. Rook f. Okay, he goes for the check instead. Basically, you can't lose this position because you already have 4 pawns for the piece. You can even trade queens and go into some sort of endgame, and you might not win, but you're not really going to lose either. You're just playing for 2 results, which is one of the nicest things you can play for. So yeah, you put the rook on the e file now first. Ricky one, come on, he has no time. Ooh, that's going to be a problem actually. Ben has 0 time left, and I hope he doesn't flag. This isn't checkmate. King h7. He should probably just go for the perpetual. I think. Oh, he flagged. He should have just gone for the perpetual. The perpetual here with rook h1, h4 to g4. Just checking the king, because the king can never go beyond those 2 files. So yeah, Ben flagged there, unfortunately. He did play well to consolidate that position, but yeah, the time deficit proved to be too severe to recover from. And so the match goes on. 2-1. This is the 3rd game. White starts with e4. Ben goes into his trusty Sicilian, and we have here another pin Sicilian. And maybe you can go back and take a look at the moves. e4, c5, knight f3, d6, c3 enters the Alapin. e6 is not considered to be one of the good moves. I mean, you either stop white from getting this wonderful center with d4 by playing knight f6. It's like almost the only good move at this point, because whenever white gets this kind of beautiful center against these 2 pawns, he just has more space, and it's difficult to argue that it's not just better. That being said, it's very playable, and many strong players do decide to go into these variations as black. So you put the bishop on d3. Both sides will probably castle short. Bishop on f4, knight on c6, queen b6. Let's catch up to the players. And knight a4, queen a5. So yeah, we are seeing a lot of knights on the rim by Prince. He had another one in the previous game, but yeah, it turned out well for him the previous game. We'll see how it turns out for him here. The bishop dropped back to d2 to hit the queen dropped back to d8, and now he plays a3. Maybe wants to go b4. Now Ben put the bishop on d7. the trusty bishops on d7 and e7 in the Sicilian, especially the classical Sicilian, they can be very, very useful defensively, and they have a lot of potential energy when it comes to the attack as well. So black put a rook on c8, white put a rook on the e file. The queen came back to b6, and now maybe you go b4, but b4 he goes a5. So wow, okay. So white decides to go in for counterplay, leaving that b pawn unprotected, because why not? You can't take on b2 actually, because something like knight a4 probably just traps the queen. So he goes e5 immediately. I'm starting to like white here. I'm really starting to like what white is doing. He's playing with the dynamic initiative, which is how you should be playing in any Sicilian. e5, black decides to go take the knight back to e8. That is, I think, the correct way to meet the e5 push here. You don't want to take first and leave this gaping hole on the d6 square. So this is probably okay. But as to whether there isn't any serious attack going to rain down your king side, that remains to be seen. That, I think, is what white should be playing for. But I'm not sure how to do it exactly. Whether a bishop g, bishop go bishop c1. Wow, that's a strange move. I'm not sure whether he really wanted to protect the b2 pawn, or he just wanted to make way for the queen, because I really thought at this point the queen should look to join the action, with like a queen e2 to e4, or like a knight g5, or even bishop g5 here. I think wasn't silly. But bishop c1 is not something that occurred to me at all. So okay, Ben took on e5, the pawn took back, and he played rook d8. Also slightly strange. You really prefer this f rook rather to be on d8. I mean, this rook is already on an open file, so what more do you want? So anyway, the queen went to c2. He played h6. The bishop went to e3 now with tempo on the queen. So the queen probably will drop back to c7. That's just that. And now this bishop has to move somewhere. Oh, okay, yeah. Knight b5 comes to tempo, so maybe queen b8. Queen b8 is probably the only good move here, because queen a5 looks too dangerous. Yeah, queen b8 is on the board. And now maybe you go rook a d1 or rook a c1. Oh, maybe bishop f4, because this e5 pawn might be hanging. So maybe bishop f4 first. No, he just goes rook c1. Okay, so knight e5 doesn't work, I guess. But how do you... No, you can just take, and the queen cannot take because of reveal. So yeah, Prince is right. Rook c1 is a fine move. Yeah, now the rook comes back. So this little shuffle with the rooks doesn't make all that much sense at all. I think he should have figured out a way to get this knight out of the way to put the other rook on d8. But anyway, the game goes on. The queen left the file, went to d2. So maybe now you go knight c7, and that allows your other rook to come to d8. The position is ugly for black, very ugly. Oh, he decides to take. Whoa. So knight takes, queen takes, bishop h6. What's going on? That just looks very, very bad. Bishop h6 is probably not even the best move, to be honest. There could be better moves, like a bishop d4. The simplest is just bishop h6. Ooh, maybe bishop... No, yeah, the simplest is just bishop h6. I don't think this is a good sequence at all. I mean, you get the pawn back, but the pawn you've given up is the h6 pawn. I'm not sure whether a pawn around your king is worth that e5 pawn that you just took. Also, this pawn on a7 is actually just hanging with tempo on your rook. So he decides to trade rooks first. So bishop taking back is forced. And then what's his idea, I wonder? Maybe just knight a7. Okay, now he goes bishop h6. Knight a7 was also not too dumb to hit the bishop with tempo. But yeah, black has gone for a very dangerous sequence. So the queen comes here all the way here to h5. Wow, I really do not like this. You can take on a7 and go into an endgame a pawn up. Which is, yeah, he does just that. Which is like probably one of the worst outcomes here. There are probably many moves that are just better, to be honest. But yeah, I really do not like this sequence for black at all. So he goes bishop d7, then the bishop comes back for white, and white is just a pawn up. But okay, the game remains to be played. He puts a bishop on d6, attacking the h3 square. So maybe you just go g3 here. Yeah, g3 is probably just fine. Then this bishop can come in here and fill in the light squares. So g3 I would play. He can also play h3, but g3 should be better. Yeah, I really do not like he goes for g3. I really do not like what black did in the middle there. So black maybe wants to put this knight on f6 now and try and go for like a knight g4 type idea. That is probably what I would do. Okay, so he goes bishop b8 to hit that knight. Oh, the knight is kind of trapped. So okay, so white goes bishop e2 to hit the queen, force the queen to relocate. But the knight is kind of trapped because he can't come out to b4. Okay, all of that changes. So yeah, they're going for a queen exchange. Now the knight is free to come back out. And this is a very interesting endgame. White should be better. I mean, probably much better. He's already a pawn up, and black still has a lot of structural weaknesses. These two pawns are both very weak. So white should just be significantly better here, but not clearly winning just yet. It's not simple. So he brings the knight all the way back to c3, hits that weak pawn. All makes sense. Probably put the rook on the d file now, and then force this bishop into some sort of defensive post. That would be my play. Okay, he goes for bishop d4. Not sure why. He threatens to double the pawns on the f6 file square, which I guess is fine. I think rook d1 was maybe just better. Okay, so king f1 to relieve the pin. Now the bishop can move and the rook here is not pinned. I think because white is already a pawn up, he's trying to just get material off the board, so he doesn't mind exchanges all that much. So black puts his knight on e4. It's a very nice advanced square. Ooh, but now isn't knight d2 a tactic? Knight d2 is check. Ooh, knight d2 wins. Ooh, so prince missed the tactic. Knight d2 is check, and then the rook is hanging. And yeah, Ben should win this one. Oh, this match is all sorts of interesting now. So he took a pawn on d5, but I mean it's not enough, not even close. Yeah, Ben just takes on f3, and now that knight might also hang. Knight e2 doesn't work because the rook covers it. So he probably just resigns here. He does not resign. He really should resign. He's down a ton of material. Okay, he resigns. And yeah, this match just keeps giving us things to talk about. So it's 2-2 now. Both sides look to be in quite some good form, but also not exactly in top form. They both really missed things. And that of course makes the spectating all that more interesting. So in this game, they went for an e4, e5. Ben went for e4, which is rare. It's not his main move, but of course he's a strong player. He can play almost anything. Prince went for knight f6, the Russian. Knight c3, they went into the 4 knights. Bishop b5 by Ben. Prince responded with bishop c5, and then castles. We are supposed to be spectating from white. Okay. So this is a 4 knights defense from the black side. It looks like a fairly standard position. The only difference in the symmetry is that white has his bishop here on b4, whereas black's counterpart bishop is not here on b5, but rather on c4. I'm not sure who that favors though. I think it's probably just quite equal. But okay, now white is making decisions. So he decides to take on c6 and then double black's pawns in exchange for giving up the bishop pair. And then he breaks in the center with d4. Strategically speaking, those two moves are not supposed to do well together, because if you want to play against the structural weakness and also give away the bishop pair, then you probably don't want to open up the center. But then doing both in succession, it could work if you've calculated something. But if there's nothing concrete in the long term, these two bishops could prove to be worrisome. But white has managed to get a lot of concrete advantage for it. Now the f6 point is attacked more than once. He's threatening to double those pawns as well, and it's difficult to defend against it. Actually, just goes h6 and accepts it. Yeah, I'll probably not take. Maybe just coming back is strong, because black's pieces are a bit passive. You can imagine as white, if you get your rooks into the center and you manage to get your knights into the game, you could be much better. But yeah, white cannot withstand the temptation and decides to double these pawns as well. So black's structure is just completely ruined, but in exchange he does have the bishop pair still, and hopefully those two can prove to be more powerful than these minor pieces. White will hope for the exact opposite. He will try and play against the structural weaknesses, but it's not easy to get to them as yet. I'm not sure exactly how he does that. Probably he has to break with like f4, e5 or something to try and get at some of these weaknesses. I think that would be the way to go for white. It's not simple. So he plays rook a d1. Yeah, I think f4, e5 is like the only way. It's like I don't see anything else. Rook a b8. I'm not sure what black is doing exactly. He should probably have maybe doubled on the g file and then pretended to attack white's king or something. at least something or double on the d file, because currently he's not really doing anything. Oh, but white went for a rook left, rook d3. I was sure that f4 e5 was the only way to play the position, but I'm not sure what rook d3 is supposed to do, because I mean, where is the rook going? Black responds with c5, just threatening to play it. Whoa, okay, threatening to play c4 and fork pieces. I thought he missed it, but then he went knight d5, also threatening to play knight f6 and fork pieces. So yeah, there are tactics in there. I'm not sure. No, it's probably not worth it. Maybe just defend, just go rook here, but then that's probably falls to rook g3. So it's actually not easy to defend against this threat. Yeah, he just ignores it and goes c4. I don't think it works out after knight. Yeah, he just takes the bishop instead, so that he's still attacking a knight. And if you take a rook, and if you take the rook, he can take the rook. So this is probably going to win material for, yeah, for white. But it's just a is it winning material? Because after this, a bishop f2. These two are just so sharp. They are seeing moves that require time to actually calculate. So yeah, you can take and play an endgame, a pawn up as white, but it's a rook endgame. Although it actually looks quite fine. I would take this bishop. I think that endgame is very winnable, but you know, he decides to complicate things further and leave the minor pieces on the board. I would have taken that bishop. I think that endgame was more winnable than it looked. But anyways, keeping minor pieces on the board should still make it more interesting. Here is going to play a4, a5. I think maybe black should have gone rook here on the previous move. Rook b3. Looking at this weak pawn, that seemed difficult to defend. a5 is going h5. Wants to put this pawn on h4 so that the bishop can live here on g3 forever, and which means the king will never ever go beyond these last two ranks. Meanwhile, white is taking advantage of the fact that this bishop is still dependent on the rook to push the pawn. So the bishop runs away, and now this pawn is actually hanging. I'm not sure what white's idea was, because it seems like the pawn is just dropping and there's no way to actually defend it. So that seemed a slightly irresponsible decision, because yeah, you can just take the pawn now. That pawn was your pride and joy. Most of your advantage lied with that pawn, so it should be fairly equalish now. It's just a question of which of the minor pieces can be better. So white is rotating its minor piece around, probably to f3, which also exposes this weak c7 pawn to attack. So maybe you go c5 here and try and put your bishop here. I think maybe that holds. But yeah, okay, he starts with bishop e5 check. Still probably play c5, because you really don't want to play. Oh, he goes for the pin. Yeah, I didn't even see that. Yeah, that's a very nice idea. So he pinned the knight to the rook, and now he can exchange if he wants to. Although I'm not sure if he even wants, because the way the pawns are set up, it seems like this dark square bishop for black should be quite powerful. And now the rook is no longer attacking the c file, so you can, or maybe he just exchanges. So okay, now this endgame really should be a draw. I don't think there's much play to it. It's a rook endgame. Although black is getting a very active king, that could be an important difference in the positions. So he goes c5. White rook is flailing around looking for some activity. It seems he's found some attacking this f7 pawn. It's a bit awkward to defend because f6 doesn't really work well. It falls to rook f5. So yeah, black just abandons the pawn and goes in for the d3 pawn, and black might actually be better here, close to winning, because that king is way too active. If you take on f7 and he takes here, you probably lose because of this pass pawn. So yeah, he has to find a way to defend this pawn, but just rook a3. Ooh. So yeah, the king activity proved to be the difference, and now black should be just winning. Yeah, this endgame should be just winning. And I don't think there are many ways to mess it up as black, because this pawn on e4 is actually also just falling. So apart from having a pass pawn, black is going to have more material. Just rook e3, or you can just start pushing your c pawn. Either move is fine. He goes for rook e3. He's going to win this pawn as well. Here, oh, this is actually slightly annoying. So you can start pushing your pawn, I guess, or you can take here. Both moves should be fine. You still do have a pass pawn, and you still should win. And the problem is white king is way too passive. It can't help in the defense in any way. It can't help in attacking any pawns. It's just stuck. And yeah, a rook alone is not going to win against a rook, a king, and a pawn. Math doesn't work like that. So I fully expect Prince to reel this point in. And yeah, it's been a topsy-turvy match, and it seems that trend is going to continue. He's taking his time though. That pawn should really have been on c2 by now. So anyways, he's taking his time. He's building a little cocoon for the king, protected by the rook and the pawn. Now he's going to push the pawn. And what's going to happen is that this rook is going to be forced to give itself up for the c pawn. And there's going to be a question of whether white can win both these two pawns, or they're going to get advanced enough to force him to give his rook back. So black tried to do something clever. He, instead of pushing the pawn, he interposed his rook in between so that white's rook cannot defend against that pawn queening, which might work, but also might not. Yeah, here it didn't really work in that white got his rook back in front of the pawn. And now black's king is caught in two minds. Does it go after these pawns, or does it come here and force white to give up the rook? So he decides to go after the pawns. G6 is played. And that, I think, was the worst decision, because the thing is, the king can never catch this pawn, so you will eventually have to give up your rook to protect that pawn. So yeah, the king has to rather try and get here as quickly as possible. And now, if you do this, you allow him to queen. This is the problem. Yeah. Wait, who won? Yeah, so yeah, white won. Prince really messed up that endgame. He really should have won that. That was quite unfortunate. But yeah, so Ben takes a 1 point lead, 3 games to 2 now. This is game 6 out of 10. It's a 10-game match, which means the winning scoreline will be 5.5. Ben currently has 3. Prince currently has 2. Onward we go. So in this game, Prince went for e4 again. Ben played e6, the French. Ben used to be an expert in the French, actually, before he switched to Strassi Sicilian. But after c4, he went c5, and now he's transposed into some kind of an e6 Sicilian. Knight c3 was played, knight c6, g3, knight f6, bishop g2, d6, knight g to e2, bishop e7, and then castles for white. Black also castles. White goes a3, rook b8 is played, rook b1, a6. Oh, this is a very interesting position. So I think here white should play d4. He decides to go f4. F4 also makes some sense, but I think the critical approach would be to try and play d4, where the exchange here is pretty much forced, and then you can try and get a very favorable version of the Maroczy bind as white. But he decides to go f4, go for some sort of kingside attack. White puts his knight on d4, stopping white from expanding d4 himself. And then b4 was played by white. He's still playing very well. He's playing it more like an English, where you try and coordinate these two pieces. So you push these pawns to try and activate your rook, and you try and get your rook and this bishop on g2 working together. It's also a very nice strategy. This should be an interesting game. So black decided to play b5 to meet him right in the center. So yeah, there's a lot of tension going on here. I'm not sure who comes off better. Yeah, no, I'm not going to try and calculate anything. So white just goes d3 to try and solidify everything. Yeah, the tension here is unbearable. So black decides to relieve the tension a little bit. White takes back. And the thing is, you never really want to be the one to take. So because black took, his position starts to look a little suspect, and yeah, he just drops material. So Prince very sharp has always spotted that after the thing is, after black decided to take first, his position started to look very iffy, because now there's a pawn just hanging on d4. Knight can take and queen will take the pawn back. And also at the same time, this pawn on c5 is starting to look a bit iffy as well. And this rook is not defended because you've actually not completed development, because your bishop is still here on c8. So after he took back, this pawn was actually not threatening to take this knight, because the pawn is pinned, because this rook on b8 is hanging. So he was able to just take here. Queen c7 was played, the knight struck back, and then the queen took a pawn back on c4. So you got 2 pawns for the piece as black, but I don't think it's anywhere close to compensation. White should be significantly better here. Probably just take on b4. He goes for bishop e3. The thing is that the pawn is still pinned actually, so he cannot take, and he cannot push because it would also die there. So he has time to develop the bishop. He's probably going to take at some point, just not yet. I don't think there's enough compensation, not even close. White should be better here. But again, the game remains to be played. So he played bishop b7, breaking the pin and also attacking the e4 pawn. But then the white took back with the rook instead, getting tempo on the queen. And then he's going to get time to protect the e4 points. And he's going to be a piece up for just a pawn. Again, not even close to enough. So comfortably ahead is white here. Maybe you put the queen on e3. Just sacrifice this pawn, go for a quick rook c1, try and attack this b7. It's an idea. Or maybe you can protect here. I place queen d3 to protect the e4 pawn. Also very sensible. Probably the more cautious approach. So Prince looks to have a healthy lead in this game. Ooh, is that a tactic I missed? I don't see a tactic. What's the point? Oh, the point is that there's d5 at the end. These guys are just so sharp. Okay, so knight e4, bishop e4. And his point is that he's going to play d5 at some point, either immediately or after bishop takes, queen takes d5, and the bishop would then be attacking the rook. And then white's response is to sacrifice the exchange on b7, so that after one of these two pieces takes back, and one of them has to, because the rook is hitting the queen, you're actually going to take here, and you're actually going to have one material as white. So white looks like he just consolidated quite nicely. Yeah, so he keeps his material advantage. He goes d5, the bishop will drop back somewhere. Oh, or he will take here. Should he? No, he probably shouldn't take that. He just drops back somewhere. After he takes that, the king goes here and the bishop is a bit trapped. He's going to play g6 at some point. Oh, but he goes in for it. He's not afraid of anything, is this guy? I don't know. Is knight e6 an idea? Or maybe even bishop g6. Yeah, I think in retrospect, going here, even f5 looks very interesting. g4 he goes for. G4 is not, I don't really know what the point of g4 is. I guess he wants to play rook h3 to f3, rook f3 to h3, just killing the king on this diagonal. And the thing is, never really afraid of g6. In normal positions, he'd be afraid of g6, but he's up so much material here that g6 is just going to snap take, and after he take back, he's just going to be up material, and your king still sucks. So that's the idea. I don't know, rook f3. I don't know what exactly black is planning to do against rook f3. Okay, white decides to go bishop c1 to stop ideas of him playing rook b1 check. I wanted to just allow it because I didn't really know. Rook f3, rook b1 check. I'll just go king j2 and ask you what your point is. But anyways, so he goes bishop c5. He says to go queen h3 instead. So that's what he was putting. He wasn't really looking for the rook to join, but for the queen. And now the same idea, the reveals are now, but now it doesn't lead to checkmate. With the rook, it led to checkmate in auto knight. So black goes queen b6, the knight is pinned, and so he's threatening to win material. Do you go bishop e3, or is there something clever with a bishop reveal check? I don't see anything. So he has to go bishop e3. That's just that. Then the queen comes to b2. Ooh, there could be some sort of knockout blow now. The thing is, black has to make sure that none of his pieces ever touches a light square, because this bishop is always going to move out with check. But as it stands right now, it doesn't look like there's any knockout. But he can just go like bishop here check, and then check on h7, check on h8, and then take the g7 pawn. That looks strong and look like it would be enough to win. But white decides to go king h1, stepping out of these pain ideas forever, which is also prudent, I guess, but not quite, doesn't quite have enough fun. Oh, did he just drop a queen on h3? He just dropped the queen on h3. Funny enough, he had so much more time too. Ben had just 4 seconds, but somehow Prince just missed that the queen on h3 is hanging, and he gave the queen away for nothing. Ben seemed to respond with a queen sack of his own. He seems a bit more deliberate. He's up so much material that he can just give up the queen without much. Yeah, but he just wins. Oh, what a shame. So Ben just won again. Another game that he really didn't deserve to win. But now he takes a 2-point lead. This is game 7. They've played 6 games. Ben has won 4 of them. We'll go to the white side. And Prince has won just 2. So 4-2 to Ben. In general, I think Ben probably is a stronger player. At least in classical chess, he's much higher rated. And he has a lot more experience. Prince is relatively new on the block, but he's so sharp and he's so fast. And he's catching up at an alarming rate that in a couple of years, he really will be one of the best in the country. And in Blitz, at least for now, they are probably very, very close in strength. So Here, Prince has to go back to his trusty Grunfeld for this game. Ben goes back to 1d4. They play a line very similar to what they played in the first game with an early c5. But here we don't get the queen exchange variation that we saw there. So here the knights rather exchange themselves on e4. But again, black goes in for a pawn sacrifice. But he gets a lot of activity. Yeah, he goes bishop f5, of course, hits the queen. He gets a lot of activity for the pawn sacrifice. And the thing is that pawn on d5 is still just hanging. So he can take it almost at will. So I saw this knight h4, but I wasn't sure that it worked. So like knight g3, what happens then? Knight g3 is just a pawn, right? Knight takes, knight takes. I don't see what I don't see what white's point is. I think knight g3 just wins a pawn back. I'm not even sure whether you should take that pawn. Okay, it's probably forced, to be frank. Yeah, knight g3 is probably like the only move that makes any sense here. Yeah, knight g3 is on the board. And then the knight has to take on f5. Then the knight will take back. And material is equal. Oh, e4. Wow, what a move. I missed that. Oh, that's such a good move. Ben is so sharp. Yeah, he just wins material. So you have to give up material. He wins a piece for a pawn. Actually, it doesn't. I missed that the rook on f1 was okay. So material is still technically equal because the mathematical count will be equal. But it's very imbalanced. White has two pieces for a rook and a pawn. Currently, his knight on h4 is on the rim and is being attacked. He has to find a way to save it, which means he's going to drop this pawn on d5 at least. So he has to find a way to consolidate. In general, in the middle game, two pieces tend to do better than just a rook and a pawn. So if you can figure out a way to consolidate his pieces, he could be better, even though currently he's down a mathematical pawn as white. But then the pieces give him a lot of potential. Perhaps black will try and make his rooks more important than white's pieces. I think rook c8 here makes a lot of sense. And then yeah, another idea would be to try and play against white's king. That's another feature of this position. The white king is not all that safe. So you have to combine ideas of activating your rooks with attacking that king. And that will probably give you enough to maintain your advantage in material. Whereas if you are too slow as black and you allow white to... Oh, I didn't like d4 here. Yeah, probably missed that. It's not something you want to allow. And you allow white to consolidate his pieces. The pieces could easily overpower the rooks. So it's going to be interesting to see who comes out on top in this particular battle. But for now, I think black should be on top. Rook c8 here. Oh, he decided to go for d3. It's a bit tactical. I think rook c8 was a slower method. Just make all your pieces better, and eventually white might actually collapse, because again, this king is not safe at all. So he goes for the immediate d3. Queen takes d3. Something will take on b2, either a queen or a bishop. Okay, he starts with rook d8. Now he plays the oh, he didn't go back to c2. I thought he would try and protect this point a little. Okay, so the queen took on b2, hitting the rook. The rook has to come to d1. It's like forced. This might actually be game over for black. And actually, that d3 idea is starting to look very clever now by opening up the files, because he has the rooks. He's immediately made his rooks more important than white's pieces. And now, yeah, the queen has almost no squares. And there might be some sort of knockout here. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a tactic. This is what black is just completely winning. It's not even close now. So he goes queen b3, try and get some sort of queen exchange. I wouldn't be surprised if you can even allow him to exchange queens and still you win. But yeah, the bishop drops on d2. Yeah, Prince takes this one. He really should have won the last two games as well. It's a shame that he's in this position to begin with, because I think on the balance his play has probably been a little better than Ben's. But Ben has been just a little bit sharper when it comes to these critical time trouble moments, especially. So he puts a knight on e3. He's down a ton of material. He's down the equivalent of a piece and a pawn. So he's just playing on for the prayer that his opponent mouse slips or something. But yeah, I don't think that will happen. Prince should comfortably reel in this point. Although the last time I said that I was wrong. So we live to see. Now he has connected passes on the queen side. Those pawns are gallivanting to victory. It should be comfortable. And he really, really should resign soon, should Ben. Anything less would be scandalous. What's going on now? So rook f8 has been played. Although, yeah, white has managed to get a couple of pieces in dangerous positions. He just doesn't have anywhere near enough to crash through on any square. If you could get this knight somewhere here immediately, maybe, but there's no way to do that. He goes knight g4, h5. I don't know where the knight is heading. You don't even have to waste time on the knight. You can just push these pawns. Once the pawns get here, it's game over. Is the thing. So the knight comes here to try and bring that idea. So maybe you go rook c1 the board. The knight has to find a square. There aren't any good squares. He goes here, but that just allows you to push with tempo. And now maybe you go a4. Yeah, that's on the board. Yeah, so now the knight has managed to get somewhere that it's causing issues again. And now he has problems to solve, but he just ignores the attack on f7 and he's just pushing his pawns. And it's probably good enough, to be honest. Okay, he just sidestepped the attack. I was going to say you might even consider sacrificing material there because your pawns are so powerful and so advanced that you probably have enough to win regardless. So black should still be comfortably winning. White has actually managed to drum up a respectable amount of counterplay, but I don't think it's enough. b2 should be GG's. b2 forces bishop a2. It's actually not simple. Yeah, b2 bishop a2. Maybe you just take the bishop. Or maybe then you decide to save the rook with like a rook f6 or a rook e here. Oh, this one shouldn't be as good. This one is no, I think rook e1 might have been better. Okay, but he decides to just take the material. He's not a ton of material. He's going to queen the a pawn. He's still completely winning. I think there were faster wins though. Now he's attacking the f2 point and it cannot be defended. The rook will take here. The king will move away somewhere. He's going to play a3. He's going to play a2, and white is going to resign soon. He starts checking the king, checking some more, checking even more. He should just push this pawn. But yeah, there are many ways to win. Many ways to win here. Just a3, a2. Yeah, a3 is on the board. So Prince is going to win this one. a2. Oh, just rook here would end the game, but he didn't see that. But anyways, he's still winning. All sorts of winning. All the pieces are hanging. So yeah, Ben will resign here. I'm fairly certain there's actually no move to make. He does not resign. Wow. Okay. So you queen and then you take the rook. Yeah, he does that. So Prince has managed to pull one back. The scoreline is now 4-3. This is game 8. Remember, it's a 10-game match, so the winning scoreline is 5.5. So Ben is 1.5 points away. Prince is 2.5 points away. There are 3 games to go. So yeah. No, that math doesn't add up, does it? But anyways, this is game 8. The scoreline is 4-3. So here they went for another Sicilian, but Prince decided to go for a close Sicilian with an early bishop b4, and then later on played d4. This is a delayed open Sicilian, but it's an interesting sort of setup. Knight 96 now. I'm not sure that bishop should take, so the queen just dropped back here. Knight f6, you castle as white, and he gets a fairly standard position in the Sicilian. So he decides to go bishop g5, bishop e7, castle. He takes. He wants to take on d6. You don't see this very often actually. Black went wrong somewhere because this isn't something you should allow. So he tries to create some counterplay by going bishop takes c3 and then queen a5, and now he's attacking the c3 point and he's at the same time attacking the bishop on b5, and he's just so fast, right? I mean, he was hit with a punch, but he immediately had something prepared, and that's the reason why in general I don't play people in like their wheelhouse, right? The Sicilian is Ben's wheelhouse. He's been playing forever, and so he always has ideas, has resources in it. So yeah, he takes back on c3, and it seems he has managed to stabilize, and he's probably not better, but he's probably not that much worse either. He's maybe managed to equalize. Now he can castle as black, and we have a very interesting middle game. Both sides have a bishop and a bishop and a knight. White's bishop is better. Black's bishop doesn't have all that much, and then white's knight is probably just about equal to black's knight, but the difference is in the pawns and the rooks. So black's pawn structure is a lot healthier, which is what you see in a lot of Sicilians in general. And white's pawn structure, yeah, leaves a lot to be desired. So he decided to try and liquidate with a4. It's a very intelligent decision. I like how, in general, Prince has been playing this whole match. He's actually been playing very, very fine chess, and I think he should be ahead if chess were fair. But yeah, you have to reel in those good positions that you get. So here, black has been left with the pass pawn here on the a file. It's weak, but it also passed, so it could be dangerous. And white's extra pawn is on the c file. It hasn't gone anywhere yet, and it looks a bit weaker. So I would give black a bit of an advantage here, but it still remains very interesting. Rook d1. What's going on? Is the bishop not pinned? I guess there was some. Okay, the bishop on the a file was hit, so he saved that bishop first. And now maybe you go bishop c3. You have to, because rook d1 really was a threat. So maybe rook d1 anyways. Although that hangs a pawn on e4. Knight e4, no, e4 you don't really want to play. Bishop d3 looks ugly, so it's actually a bit uncomfortable defending. So maybe you have to take the rook and then maybe play something like rook e1, but that also looks very, very ugly, and also drops the c2s. Oh wow, black might actually be just winning here. So he decides to go c3, which hits the knight, defends the c3 pawn, and then gives him a tempo that he will use to figure out a way to defend this pawn. A very intelligent move. It was probably close to an early move, so he found it quite quickly. So black traded rooks, the knight took back, so the knight now defends the e4 pawn, and now it looks like he solved his issues a bit. So he goes knight c2, that's black. And now the question is that, is this pawn going to cause any issues? I don't think so. It's too early for that pawn to just run down the board, although he could activate his rook with like a rook b2 now. Yeah, so it's still a question of this pawn versus white's pieces. If this pawn can create some chaos, black will be better. But if the pawn is stopped and even worse won, then white could claim to have some advantage. So he played rook c1. I think rook b2 really should have been played by black. After bishop d3, the knight on a3 doesn't make any sense at all. I think he should have tried to maintain that knight on c2 with the rook b2. That activates both pieces. But okay, he tries to come out through b5. Rook b1 is played, pinning the knight to the rook. And now, what do you do? Are you not just dropping material? I guess you have to go rook b7. It's close to an only move, actually. Yeah, rook b7, he finds it. These guys are very sharp. And the idea is that you have to stop c4 coming with any sort of threat, because the rook would be hanging on the b file. At the same time, the rook cannot move away because it's defending that knight. So now the knight can move away. So now what do you do? Yeah, it's not simple. I didn't like what black did in this middle game. I thought he had an advantage. But anyway, white goes bishop c2 to try and hit this pawn. Maybe you push the pawn, or maybe you move. Oh no, just knight c3. Yeah, but I guess rook takes, bishop takes. That's just a pawn. I don't know why he didn't defend that c3 pawn. So black has just won a pawn for nothing, it seems. And black is definitely much better now. Close to winning. That's just a passed pawn, and it's a minor piece end game. And you can already, there's also a pawn hanging here on e4, by the way. Oh, the game is over. Yeah, bishop takes e4. Game is over. Black is winning. 2 pawns up in a minor piece end game. You don't recover from that at this level. So he gives up. Oh, okay, yeah. So he resigns. So Ben wins another one and takes a commanding lead now. They've played 8 games. Ben has won 5 of them. Prince has won 3. The scoreline is 5-3 in Ben's favor. If he wins one more point, either a half point or a full game, he wins the match. Prince, however, has to win the last 2 games, both on demand, just to tie the match and go into tie breaks. So Ben goes for another Catalan. Okay, he hasn't committed to the Catalan. Another d4. Ben plays another. Prince plays another Grunfeld. With another c5, another early d takes c5. This time he goes for knight a6. Yeah, we saw this opening, I think, 2 games ago. But here Ben deviates to bishop e5 check. After bishop d7, here you probably trade and then you castle. Yeah, he trades on d7, then you castle, I think. Yeah, I think you just castle. I don't think you benefit from trying to keep the material. Yeah, and black should probably take back soon. He goes rook e1. Now he's threatening to play e4. Oh, but he should have taken. No, if he allows him to play e4, it's game over. So he allows him to play e4, which means white has kept his material. Strangely, I think maybe it's not too silly for black to allow this. It's bad. I mean, it's losing. It's actually definitely losing. But in terms of imbalances, because black is in a mastering position now, if he draws this game, he loses, because white just needs half a point to wrap up this match. So it's not too easy for him to play. So Ben decides to trade on f6. Bishop would take back. I think maybe his idea is to push e5 afterward, which looks very powerful. Yeah, so Prince decides to take back with the pawn instead. But again, that looks very ugly. Oof, this just looks very, very bad, actually. So he plays a3 to stop b4. Yeah, black just plays a5 to try and insist on playing b4. But I don't think even achieving e4 does all that much. Like if you go like rook c1 as white, b4, take, and then knight d2. What's yeah, I'm not sure what's. So he goes knight d4. That's white. b4 is on the board. Takes. And I guess his idea is that he now has access to the b5 square. Very clever from Ben. Ben is now showing a bit of class in these last few games too, to run away with the match. So f5 is played by black, is the only move to try and get some sort of counterplay. The white knight gets the c6 square. The rook has to go away somewhere. It's starting to look very, 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 very bad for black. Oh, apologies. I have to run and get my laptop charged. Okay, danger is averted. The world is saved. The stream lives on. Don't note to self, don't start streaming without plugging your laptop. Oh, and the game ended when I was away. Okay, so let's take a look at what happened. So yeah, Ben was already winning before we left, so he managed to close up shop. Oof. Yeah, Prince dropped the queen, and Ben wins the 6th game. And after 9 games with a scoreline of 6-3, Benard Anhwere, alias Nyameba, wins the match. This is the rematch. They played one last week. I think he won with a similar scoreline, unless I'm mistaken, because I think he was also similar to somewhere 6-3, 6-2. So yeah, winning in dominating fashion. Although I should say that the play on the day wasn't as dominating as the scoreline would suggest. But this is Blitz, of course. You win because you play more clutch chess when the moment arrives, and he definitely was more clutch on the day. So yeah, he wins the match again. Prince will really not enjoy losing this one, but to be honest, he played some excellent chess, and he probably deserved more points than he gets. But yeah, thank you for tuning in for today's broadcast. This is our first live stream, so pardon the technical difficulties we had along the way, but yeah, it was very enjoyable. We'll probably do a couple more of these along the line. There are a few tournaments coming up soon, and whenever it is that we have information on them, we will let you know. And whenever it is that we are able, we will do live commentary on them like we did today. Thank you very much once again for tuning in. If you have not subscribed, what are you still waiting for? Don't forget to drop a like, leave a comment. It really helps out with the algorithm and everything. And check out the other videos on the channel whilst you are here. There are many interesting games, analysis, classical games, entertainment, educational, everything. This is BN146 for Chess Intense, signing off. See you soon. Happy chessing.